Insecure bosses do these two things. What are they? Hi, I'm Kenneth, and I previously made a video on the 6 frustrating signs that someone is a bad boss. Following up on that video, I'm talking about the 2 signs of an insecure boss today. Number 1, they only hire people less capable than themselves. A boss lacking in self-confidence may only choose to hire someone they deem less capable than themselves. By hiring someone less talented, they can feel more superior and secure their place in the hierarchy. Risk-averse companies with a bureaucratic hierarchy tends to make this problem worse because they have a vertical hierarchy. With insecure bosses, the more levels you have, the less capable the subordinates become. As you head down the levels, you actually find that employees get less and less talented because the bosses are hiring people less capable than themselves. Eventually, when you reach the bottom level, you end up with deadbeats lacking any initiative and are unwilling to do any work without being told to do so first. If you think about it, it's like a Russian door. You start with a big door, then you slowly move on to a smaller and smaller door as you remove each layer. It's a slippery slope to mediocrity. So this reminds me of a quote from the book I read called The Unpublished David Ogilvy. In it, there's a quote by the man himself that goes, "If you only hire people smaller than yourselves, we shall become a company of dwarfs. If on the other hand, we hire people only bigger than ourselves, we shall become a company of giants." So on to number 2, insecure bosses withhold information. People say knowledge is power, and that's quite true to a certain extent. And by withholding information, insecure bosses limit the ability of their subordinates of outshining them. Every decision made by an employee in such a circumstance is based off incomplete information. And it's pretty par for the course for office politics. But there's a more insidious way that information can be withheld, and that's by withholding the information necessary to undertake key processes in work. Insecure bosses in these circumstances usually refuse to teach newcomers how to do a certain job. This in essence makes the boss indispensable. To an outsider, it would look like nobody in the team is competent except for the boss. As new hires fumble and make mistakes as they try to figure out the work processes on their own, they always look bad in comparison to the boss, who always seems to be saving the day. The boss ends up looking good to his bosses, and at the same time, his subordinates end up looking like bumbling idiots who can't even get a simple job done. This actually reminds me of an experience I had in my first job, where a manager seemingly restricted all knowledge of an essential IT system to herself. What the manager was doing was actually brought to light when she had to go for weeks or months of hospitalization leave. When we had an issue and brought it up to her subordinates, they would come up to us and ask, can we wait the weeks or months for the manager to come back, as they couldn't do anything on their end. So this one manager managed to hold an entire company hostage by making herself indispensable and difficult to fire. If you're a fan of the Chinese Kung Fu movies, a common trope is where the Kung Fu master tears out the last page of the Kung Fu manual and takes the final move to their grave. Sometimes it's because they deem the final move, the killer move, but also because they don't want their disciples to surpass them. So what can one do? Personally, I've always felt that the likelihood of the company changing you is higher than the likelihood of you changing the company. Companies that allow for this to happen tend to encourage tenure over impact. To me, the scariest thing that could happen is you stay on in a company, get lulled into that false sense of security, and become just like these insecure bosses yourself. Let me know what you think in the comments, and especially let me know how you dealt with such a situation and if you survived.